Delhi, you're watching DD India News Now, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, coming up in the next hour. Revised indictment filed against former U.S. President Donald Trump in January 6 Capitol riots case. First rioter gets over 4 years of prison. Trump claims decks cleared for presidential debate on ABC. Team Harris says terms not yet settled as issue of muted mics dictates contrasting claims. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky says advancement in Kursk region is part of victory plan to be presented to U.S. President Joe Biden. Dismisses compromises with Russia, calls dialogue meaningless.
The main point of this plan is to force Russia to end the war. And I really want it to end on fair terms for Ukraine.
Heavy rains, flood-like situation wreaks havoc in Western India's Gujarat. The downpour leads to waterlogging in many districts. And in sports, Paris to host its first ever Paralympic Games with a spectacular opening ceremony in the heart of France's capital. 4,400 Paralympic athletes from 184 delegations are set to participate. Well, on to the details now. Former U.S. President Donald Trump faced a revised federal indictment on Tuesday, accusing him of illegally trying to overturn his 2020 election loss. U.S. Special Counsel Jack Smith's team obtained a new indictment in the Washington case. Jack Smith's filing came in response to the Supreme Court's ruling giving former president broad immunity. This indictment, like the initial one, accuses Trump of a multi-part conspiracy to block the certification of his election defeat to Biden. The revised indictment focuses on Trump's role as a political candidate seeking re-election rather than as the president at the time. Meanwhile, U.S. Senator and Republican vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance said that the conspiracy charge against former President Donald Trump was an attempt to interfere in the upcoming November 5th election. Vance insisted that presidents, like judges and police officers, should have some immunity.
Well, I think just my pushback on what they said is, look, if the president doesn't have some level of immunity in how he conducts his office, in the same way that judges have to have immunity, police officers have to have immunity, there has to be some recognition that people can't be sued for doing their job. And, you know, the way that I think about it is try to make this nonpartisan.
Well, the first rioter to breach the U.S. Capitol building during the January 6, 2021 riots was sentenced to nearly 4.5 years in prison on Tuesday. Michael Sparks was convicted by a jury in March of felony obstruction of an official proceeding and civil disorder and misdemeanors, including disorderly and disruptive conduct in a restricted building or grounds, entering a restricted building and disorderly conduct in a Capitol building. The judge ordered 53 months of prison along with $2,000 in restitution to the architect of the Capitol. The video during the riots showed Sparks jumping through a shattered Capitol window shortly after another rioter, Proud Boy Dominic Pezzola, busted it open. When he entered the Capitol, he came face to face with U.S. Capitol Police Sergeant Victor Nichols. And ahead of the presidential elections in the United States, former U.S. President and Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump has accepted the debate with Democratic candidate Kamala Harris. Sharing a post on the social media platform Truth, Trump said an agreement has been reached to have closed microphones at the September 10th U.S. presidential debate with Democratic rival in Philadelphia. Vice President Kamala Harris' presidential campaign, however, rejected Republican rival Trump's assertion that the two sides had agreed to muted microphones at the September 10th U.S. presidential debate. Harris' campaign's officials said the issue remains a matter of ongoing conversation with host network ABC. The candidates' campaigns clashed on Monday over the previously agreed-upon debate, with the vice president's team seeking a return to open microphones while Trump threatened to pull out entirely after suggesting the network was biased. And former U.S. President and Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump addressed the attempt on his life last month during an interview with TV host Dr. Phil McGraw in Las Vegas on Tuesday. Trump said he believed God had protected him during an assassination attempt at a campaign rally in Butler in Pennsylvania in July. Trump also announced that he felt honored by the endorsement of the former independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who had abandoned his campaign the previous week.
I mean, the only thing I can think is that God loves our country and he thinks we're going to bring our country back. He wants to bring it back. It's so bad right now what's happening. When you look at the crime, the horrible things that are happening inside our country, and it can be solved. It can be solved fairly quickly. It has to be God. How can you say it's luck when it's, 20 million to 1, okay? I mean, it's just not possible that I was in that position. It's the only position where that bullet could have missed.
Well, Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris and her running mate Tim Walz will give an interview to CNN, their first since being nominated to the party's ticket in November's election. The pair will sit down for the joint interview while on a campaign trip to the battleground state of Georgia on Thursday. The interview will be broadcasted at 9 p.m. local time on the same day. An update on Russia and Ukraine conflict now, where tension continues with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky saying his troops' incursion into Russia's Kursk region is part of a victory plan. He added that he will present to U.S. President Joe Biden next month. Speaking at a forum on Tuesday, President Zelensky noted that the success of the plan would depend on President Biden and on whether the U.S. would give Kyiv what is in this plan or not, whether we will be free to use this plan or not. Ukraine mostly relies on military supplies from abroad to fight Russia and repel its attacks. At the forum, President Zelensky also urged the West to provide additional weapons.
Operation in the Kursk region is a part of a plan about which I will be talking with President Biden. The main point of this plan is to force Russia to end the war. And I really want it to end on fair terms for Ukraine. If the plan is accepted and delivered, which is also very important, if these two elements work together, then we believe that our main aim will be reached.
Well, Zelensky also called the dialogues with Russia meaningless and dismisses any compromises.
There can be no compromises with Putin. Dialogue today is in principle empty and meaningless because he does not want to end the war diplomatically. He does not want it. He pretends to be ready for a diplomatic way, but under the condition of giving him 30% of our land.
Well, warning West, Russia cautioned the United States on Tuesday that World War III would not be confined to Europe. Moscow said that West is playing with fire by considering allowing Ukraine to strike deep into Russia with Western ammunitions. The reactions came after Ukraine's continuous incursion in Russia's western Kursk region on August 6th that has carved out a slice of territory in the biggest foreign attack on Russia since World War II. And at least 6 people were killed in a Russian drone attack on Tuesday in Ukraine, a day after Moscow's biggest air attack on its neighbor. 3 people died in a hotel in the central city of Kryvyi Rih, where is other 3 due to drone attacks on the southeastern Ukrainian city of Zaporizhia. President Volodymyr Zelensky vowed to retaliate against Russia for its attacks. This follows Monday's strike, where over 200 Russian missiles and drones were launched at Ukraine. The attack received a widespread international condemnation. And shifting focus to Israel-Hamas conflict now, United Nations aid operations in the Gaza Strip continued on Tuesday. Earlier, humanitarian efforts had ground to a halt because new Israeli evacuation orders forced the shutdown of the main UN Operations Center. UN Safety and Security Chief Gilles Michaud said on Tuesday that over the weekend, the Israeli military only gave a few hours' notice for more than 200 UN personnel to move out of offices and living spaces in Deir al-Balah in central Gaza. In a statement, Michaud said that the United Nations is determined to stay in Gaza, while UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric said UN is whatever is possible for aid to be delivered.
We've just shared with you a statement from Gilles Michaud, the Undersecretary General for Safety and Security, that makes it clear that we are determined to stay in Gaza to deliver life-saving aid for and with Palestinian civilians. Humanitarian aid delivery continues, a tremendous feat given that we are operating at the uppermost peripheries of tolerable risk. Mr. Michaud underscores that humanitarians have been in the crosshairs throughout this crisis, which is by far the deadliest on record for the United Nations.
Meanwhile, Israeli special forces have recovered an Israeli hostage from a tunnel in the southern Gaza Strip in a complex rescue operation. He was in Hamas captivity for more than 10 months. 52-year-old Qaid Farhan Al-Qadi had been transferred to hospital and his condition was stable. He belongs to the Bedouin community in southern Israel. Al-Qadi's rescue leaves 108 Israeli and foreign hostages still in Gaza, but around a third of these are known to have died, with the fate of the others unknown. An Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke with freed hostage Qaid Farhan Al-Qadi, who congratulated Al-Qadi and told him that people of Israel are moved by his freedom. The Prime Minister made it clear that he would continue to do everything for the return of the hostages.
Welcome home, Farhan Al-Qadi. I commend the IDFA and the ISA for another successful rescue operation. We are working relentlessly to return all of our hostages. We are doing this in two main ways: negotiations and rescue operations. The two of these together require our military presence on the ground and constant military pressure on Hamas. We will continue to act until we return all of them home.
Well, an Israeli airstrike hit a pickup truck traveling in northeast Lebanon late on Tuesday, which was said to be carrying military equipment. The two sources said the strike hit a pickup near a remote area of Lebanon near the Syrian border. 2 days earlier, the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah and the Israeli military engaged in one of the most intense exchanges of fire between them over the last 10 months, amid fears that Israel's war in Gaza would become a wider regional conflict. And the United States reaffirmed its support to Israel against Iran. White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby said the U.S. remains committed to defending Israel in the event of an Iranian attack. Kirby told Israel's Channel 12 that it was tough to predict the chances of an attack, but the White House takes Iranian rhetoric seriously. He said their messaging to Iran is consistent, has been and will stay consistent. There's no reason to potentially start some sort of all-out regional war, and we are going to be prepared to defend Israel if it comes to that. And the Greek-flagged crude oil tanker Soyunion that was recently attacked by Yemen's Houthis is still on fire in the Red Sea and now appears to be leaking oil. The Soyunion was targeted last week by multiple projectiles of Yemen's port city of Hodeidah. The Iran-aligned group has sunk 2 ships and killed at least 3 crew members in their 10-month campaign, which has upended global ocean shipping by forcing vessel owners to avoid the Suez Canal shortcut. The Soyunion was the 3rd vessel operated by Athens-based Delta tankers to be attacked in the Red Sea this month. Pentagon spokesman Air Force Major General Patrick Ryder said that a third party had tried to send 2 tugs to help salvage the Soyunion.
We are aware of a third party that attempted to send 2 tugs to the vessel to help salvage, but they were warned away by the Houthis and threatened with being attacked, which again demonstrates their blatant disregard for not only human life, but also for the potential environmental catastrophe that this presents.
And still to come in DD India News Now. Tim Walz, Kamala Harris's running mate, fighting for the 2nd most prestigious office in the U.S. has caused a stir in China. Stay with us to know why. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer warns October's budget is going to be painful in a speech in the Downing Street Rose Garden. And Sudan declares cholera outbreak with over 350 cases recorded in just a few weeks.
This week on Defense Dynamics, we will tell you about defense and diplomacy panning out from Poland, Ukraine, and right up to United States of America. What does this mean in real tangible terms? How does this underscore India's multipolar worldview by exercising strategic autonomy, and much more? Also, what's the strategic implication of Indian military officers being stationed with different US commands? Watch Defense Dynamics this week on Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. IST on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lapakshi Quran, and moving on, the U.S. ships could escort Philippine vessels on resupply missions in the South China Sea. Indo-Pacific Commander Admiral Samuel Piparo says the U.S. military is open to the possibility of escorting Philippine ships in the disputed South China Sea, depending on consultations under the Allies' 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty. The remarks were made after a series of maritime and air confrontations between the Philippines and China in the South China Sea in the past week. Beijing has pressed its claim to the disputed conduit for more than $3 trillion of annual shipborne commerce, while Manila has kept up supply missions. And U.S. President Joe Biden's National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan is continuing with his China visit, talking with top Chinese officials in Beijing this week. The three-day visit is aimed at simmering down tensions between the two superpowers ahead of the U.S. election. On Tuesday, Sullivan first met with Foreign Minister Wang Yi. Before proceeding into a closed-door meeting, Sullivan said both would talk about areas of agreement and disagreement that needs to be managed effectively and substantively. And Tim Walz has been officially nominated as the Democratic Party's vice presidential pick for the U.S. general election. The Minnesota governor's selection has caused a stir in China, having previously taught in the country. Speculation has mounted over whether his past could shape the future of U.S.-China relations should the Democrats win the White House come November. William Denselaw reports for more from Hong Kong.
Washington, D.C. is over 8,000 miles away. But for Democratic supporters here in Hong Kong, the race to the White House is very much in focus. For Danny Eldasani, there's a personal connection. Like vice presidential hopeful Tim Walz, she's from Minnesota. They attended the same state university and both moved to this part of the world to teach.
The fact that he was a teacher for so long, he knows what students need, what families need, I think is very important. And he brings that fresh perspective to the party.
And it's that perspective that's garnering international attention.
People here are certainly excited about what Tim Walz brings to the Democratic ticket. And his long-standing links to China have created a buzz across the wider region.
Walz spent a year teaching in China and has led a number of trips to the country with American students. He also speaks some Mandarin. Those links led to Walz trending on social media site Weibo after he was chosen as Kamala Harris's running mate, sparking speculation over what it could mean for US-China relations.
He's going to emphasize restoring academic and people-to-people exchanges. And yet when it comes to core value-centered and even geopolitical interests, such as, for instance, the technological rivalry in race, or on American stances and positions on Chinese domestic politics, I don't forecast substantial deviations.
Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump says a Harris-Walz administration would be soft on China. But many analysts expect a continuation of the policy seen under President Biden.
The U.S. will try to use a more multilateral approach in probably collaborating with its allies or different countries beyond China.
Democrats here say they're energized by Harris's VP pick. But before Tim Walz's foreign policy credentials can be tested on the world stage, he must first convince the American electorate that he's the man for the job. William Denselaw in Hong Kong reporting for DD India.
And moving on, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un attended the test of an upgraded 240mm rocket launcher system on Wednesday. The system proved its superiority in mobility and strike concentration during the inspection testing. Earlier this week, Kim oversaw tests of new suicide drones and urged researchers to develop artificial intelligence for the unmanned vehicles. US and South Korean officials have accused North Korea of supplying Russia with artillery shells, missiles and other equipment in recent months for Moscow to use in its war on Ukraine. And Russia's Vice Minister of Industry and Trade, Roman Chekhyshov, held a meeting with North Korea's Minister of External Economic Relations, Yoon Jong-ho, on Tuesday in Pyongyang. Chekhyshov, who arrived in Pyongyang on Monday with the Russian delegation, discussed further developing economic cooperation with North Korean officials, including Yoon and Vice Minister of Chemical Industry, Kim Ha-sik. And Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei has called for a stricter regulation of cyberspace. Ali Khamenei, who has imposed some of the strictest controls on internet access in the world, said that cyberspace needed to be regulated, citing the arrest of messaging app Telegram founder Pavel Durov in France as an example of how other countries also imposed controls. The Islamic Republic has some of the strictest internet controls in the world, but its blocks on US-based social media such as Facebook, Twitter and YouTube are routinely bypassed by tech-savvy Iranians using virtual private networks. Iran regularly charges internet users based on posts they shared online. And moving on, Britain's upcoming budget will be painful, according to Prime Minister Keir Starmer. He's delivered a major speech to prepare the country for October's tax and spending announcements, insisting his Labour Party has been left a difficult legacy by the Conservatives. DD India's Ollie Barrett reports for more from London.
Keir Starmer insisting that things may well get worse for Britons and their economy before they get better. He insists that the legacy passed to the new Labour government from the outgoing Conservatives is worse than Labour knew about in the election campaign, and that's why Keir Starmer and his government ministers are preparing the ground more and more, it seems, for the possibility of tax rises in the budget in October, which will be delivered by the Chancellor, the Finance Minister, Rachel Reeves. Keir Starmer, though, has promised that income tax won't go up, national insurance tax won't go up, and so there are limits to the types of tax rises that the Labour government will be able to be looking at. The Conservatives insist that actually Labour is being disingenuous here. They say that the economy is growing in a healthy way, that unemployment is low, and that actually they have bequeathed Labour a healthy economic picture, and they say it's unfair, therefore, for them to be blamed by Labour at this point for what are clearly going to be some difficult decisions, is how the government describes it, when it comes to taxation in the October budget. We've also been hearing from one union, Unite the Union, says that it believes that Keir Starmer is painting a bleak picture, and that it believes that he is setting off in the wrong direction when it comes to a sort of austerity type programme in the months ahead. But Keir Starmer insists that there are going to have to be tough decisions to be made to fix the areas of the UK economy that he feels simply aren't performing as they should be at the moment. As I say, this is all in preparation ahead of the October budget, and more now we're getting hints from Keir Starmer and his ministers that tax rises of one sort or another may well be on the way. Ollie Barrett in London reporting for DD India.
Well, also, Sudan has declared a cholera outbreak this week. More than 350 cases of cholera have been recorded in a new outbreak in just a few weeks amid a heavy rainy season that hits large parts of the country. Neba Mohideen reports for more from Port Sudan.
Heavy rains and flash floods continue to devastate Kassala State in eastern Sudan, leading to an expansion of a cholera outbreak. Sudan's health minister said at least 22 people have died from the disease, while thousands have been infected. Experts believe that many more people than the official records may have been infected, but the difficulty in reaching those trapped in conflict zones persists. The government declared a cholera epidemic after several weeks of heavy rain in large parts of the country, which has contaminated drinking water. The crowded IDP camps are making the disease spread further, where almost 9 million people live in those camps across the country. For 16 months, Sudanese people have been grappled with lack of access to life-saving assistance and essential aid due to the fighting between the Sudanese armed forces and the rapid support forces. This rainy season particularly poses grave risks and challenges to millions of vulnerable people across the country. Naba Muhyiddin, reporting from Port Sudan in Sudan for DD India.
And Japan is bracing for Typhoon Shanshan, which is forecast to bring heavy rain and strong winds, forcing airlines and railways to preemptively cancel services over the coming days. Shanshan is expected to make landfall in Japan's southwestern Kyushu Island in the coming days, with the Japan Meteorological Agency considering issuing a special warning for Kagoshima Prefecture. The typhoon is expected to approach Japan's central and eastern regions, which includes the capital Tokyo, around the weekend. As a precautionary measure, major airlines have cancelled domestic flights slated to leave or arrive in southwestern Japan till Friday. Some bullet train services in the area are also expected to be cancelled on Wednesday and Thursday. And India's Chris Gilbert joins us for more from Tokyo on this. Well, Chris, there are forecasts for strong winds, high waves and high tides. How is Japan bracing for the typhoon Shanshan?
Well, I think you've summarized the situation very concisely. Amami Island, which is halfway between Okinawa and Kyushu, the western main island of Kyushu, has been experiencing the brunt of it for the last 24 hours or so. The 42,000 residents on the island were given a day's notice to prepare for evacuation, and then they were given the evacuation as ahead of time. So that's one measure that's been implemented, at least for Amami. You mentioned already the warnings, the special warnings that have been put in place by the meteorological agency, especially for Kagoshima Prefecture, Miyazaki Prefecture, and the rest of Kyushu. The bullet trains there are expected to stop at around 8 p.m. local time tonight, so about 6 hours from now, and that's going into Thursday. And the bullet trains for the rest of the country, extending from Fukuoka all the way the width of the country to Tokyo, are expected to be impacted over the coming days. 9,000 air passengers have been affected already. And while you know, the storm is yet to approach and there's yet to be seen the scale of it, and it is expected to be a storm which brings landslides, flooding, rain, which is not seen very often. In fact, the meteorological agency is asking people to prepare for disasters which are only seen every few decades, which tracks with what else the meteorological agency is saying in general, which is that typhoon season in Japan is arriving earlier. These typhoons are usually seen in September historically, and the typhoons are becoming slower, extending their impact to regions, and they are becoming stronger. All of these factors attributable to warmer ocean temperatures created by global warming and trends which will only increase in the future.
All right, so local warnings have been issued, advisories have been issued. What are the precautions being taken by the people there?
Well, there is a great concern for Japan's older population. About a third of the country is over 65. The vast majority of those people live in rural areas in the countryside and are not extremely mobile. They sometimes have difficulty receiving evacuation orders or warnings. And so, as we saw on Amami Island, there is a lot of focus on getting the word out to evacuate ahead of time, well ahead of time. And there's also extensive warnings in place for people to not be complacent away from the storm's path at the moment, because the rest of Japan, away from West Japan, is already experiencing deluges as a knock-on effect of the warm air coming from the typhoon. We saw Aichi Prefecture, which is halfway between Osaka and Tokyo, over the last 2 days, receive a whole August's worth of rainfall in just a short period. and what that resulted in, as we've already seen, is a landslide that hit a house with 5 people inside. 2 have been rescued. The other 3 are still unaccounted for, and the storm hasn't even hit that part of the country yet. And so there is a high risk of landslides and mudslides from many parts of the country, as well as high river warnings and flood warnings. And that is something that the authorities are urging people to be vigilant of, even if the storm is not arriving in that part of the country yet. They want everyone to be prepared for potential disasters that could result from it.
All right, a lot of vigilance required there. Thank you so much, Chris, for all that update from there. And moving on, Elon Musk's SpaceX has once again delayed the kickoff of its latest mission. The Polaris Dawn mission was set to take off on Wednesday, but the company opted to delay takeoff because of unfavorable weather conditions for the crew's return to Earth. This latest delay comes after a planned Tuesday morning launch attempt from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida was waved off because of issues with ground equipment at the launch pad. The mission, which will last 6 days, represents a significant leap forward in the privatization of space exploration. The Polaris Dawn mission will orbit Earth in an elliptical path, coming as close as 190 kilometers and reaching as far as 1,400 kilometers from the planet's surface. This trajectory will take the crew farther from Earth than any human has been since the Apollo moon missions ended in 1972. And time now for a short break. More news on the other side. Stay tuned.
This week on Defense Dynamics, we will tell you about defense and diplomacy panning out from Poland, Ukraine, and right up to United States of America. What does this mean in real tangible terms? How does this underscore India's multipolar worldview by exercising strategic autonomy, and much more? Also, what's the strategic implication of Indian military officers being stationed with different US commands? Watch Defense Dynamics this week on Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. IST on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on, a high-level delegation from Ministry of External Affairs is in Maldives to review the progress of development cooperation projects in the archipelago. The delegation, led by Special Secretary and Financial Advisor Anurag Agarwal, held productive engagements with Maldivian ministers and senior officials of the government. The delegation also undertook site visits and reviewed the progress of the Indian projects on Tuesday. The delegation is in Maldives till today. And Foreign Affairs Minister of Chile, Alberto Van Claveren, has arrived in New Delhi for a 3-day official visit. The second India-Chile Joint Commission meeting will be held today, co-chaired by India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, and visiting dignitary. Minister Claveren will participate along with his Agriculture Minister, Esteban Valenzuela, in Chile-India Business Summit later today before leaving for Mumbai. Chile is a key partner of India in the Latin American region. The forthcoming visit of Minister Claveren will provide both sides an opportunity to review the progress in bilateral relations and explore new avenues for cooperation, further strengthening bilateral ties. And moving on now, failing to adopt measures for Security Council reforms at its current session, the UN General Assembly on Tuesday decided unanimously to push the negotiations to the next, a move India decried as risking the process's legitimacy. India's Deputy Permanent Representative Ambassador Yojana Patel on Tuesday delivered India's remarks on equitable representation on an increase in the membership of the Security Council. She stressed that there is a clear global sentiment for UNSC expansion and that intergovernmental negotiations cannot exercise in perpetuity only on paper. She added that the time is running out.
There is a clear global sentiment in favor of expansion in both categories of membership. In conclusion, we would like to point out that at this stage, this ongoing exercise aimed at expanding convergences appears to have run its course and in contributing to any meaningful progress. Urgent text-based negotiations are the need of the hour. We continue to call for a constructive approach that aims to build on the views expressed by the majority of member states, including on expansion in both categories of UNSC membership and time-bound commencement of text-based negotiations at the earliest.
Well, updates on assembly elections in North India's Union Territory Jammu and Kashmir now. As many as 279 candidates have filed their nomination papers for the first phase of election across 24 assembly constituencies. Tuesday was the last day of filing nomination papers for the first phase, to be held on September 18th. Scrutiny of nomination papers will be held today, while withdrawal of nomination can be done before August 30th. Over 23.27 lakh voters, including 5.66 lakh youths, are eligible to exercise their electoral franchise during the phase 1 of the polls. And in the western Indian state of Gujarat, heavy showers continued for the third consecutive day on Tuesday, throwing normal life out of gear and flooding low-lying areas. According to the Gandhinagar State Emergency Operations Centre, 9 people have lost their lives in rain-related incidents at different locations in the state, while 1 person is still missing. More than 15,000 people were evacuated and over 300 rescued in different districts as water levels in dams and rivers rose amid incessant rainfall. Due to the heavy to very heavy rains, transportation has been affected across the West Indian state. National Disaster Response Force and State Disaster Response Force teams, besides Army, Navy, Air Force and Coast Guard teams, continue to conduct search and rescue operations. And in India's Parth Pandya joins us from Ahmedabad for more on this. Well, Parth, rains are still on. What's the situation there right now?
Yes, rain are still on. If we talk about specifically about figures, yesterday past night, Dwarka received significant amount of rain, that is 18 inches of rain. As well as Jamnagar, there was 15 inches of rain. Other two areas, Vadodara and Bharuch, received almost 12 to 15 inches of rain, so it was significant amount of rain. IMD has issued red alert in all over the Gujarat today also and upcoming 2 days also, because the depression passing from the Madhya Pradesh to Gujarat right now. The route of the depression will be the Saurashtra region and the Kutch region. So special eye has been there on these 2 regions right now. Total 102% of annual rainfall has been received right now till today in the Gujarat. It is a significant amount of rain. More than 75% of the reservoirs are almost full, 80 to 85%. So the quantity of water is there for the farmers. That is a good sign. Rescue operations are going on since last 30-35 hours constantly, day and night. Rescue operations are there in the Vadodara, Bharuch. 13 villages of Bharuch was contactless yesterday night. So Army, NDRF and SPRF are constantly working on that. 6th column of Army has been called by the state government from the central government yesterday night only. 14 teams of NDRF are constantly working. 22 teams of NDRF are there. With that, moreover, the local administration is also constantly on the standby mode. Moreover, it is an important thing to notice that upcoming 3 to 4 days are also specifically important for the weather point of view from the IMD, as issued just an hour and before the notice issued by the IMD. IMD stated that the upcoming 3 to 4 days are also significant. Local commuters, local people has been affected greatly by this rain, because in Gujarat, we did not receive this much of rain normally. So it is not normal rain. If you see behind me, the commuters are going to work as regularly, because it is the central Gujarat area, that is the Ahmedabad. But the surrounding areas, that is Vadodara, Bharuch, southern Gujarat, Vapi, Valsad, Navsari, Saurashtra region, Kutch region is very badly affected. Kutch region has received significant 120% of the rain, annual rain of the Gujarat. So upcoming 3 to 4 days are also significant. IMD, the state disaster relief, the team, NDRF, Army are constantly looking upon this situation and trying to manage as far as possible.
All right, so relief operations going on in full swing. Thank you so much, Parth, for all that update there. And moving on, 20th August 2024 marks 10 years since the launch of the world's largest financial inclusion program. The Jan Dhan Yojana, which was designed to provide banking services to the unbanked sections of Indian society, has now created more than 530 million bank accounts linked to mobile phone numbers and India's unique identity cards called Aadhaar. This initiative has played a leading role in harnessing the true potential of India's digital public infrastructure. More in this report.
प्रधानमंत्री जन धन योजना के माध्यम से हम देश के गरीब से गरीब लोगों को बैंक अकाउंट की सुविधा से जोड़ना चाहते हैं.
The Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana is the world's largest financial inclusion program initiated by the Government of India. It provides affordable access to financial services such as bank accounts, remittances, credit, insurance and pensions to almost every citizen of the country. As of August 2024, there are over 530 million Jan Dhan bank accounts, with a total balance that exceeds 231,000 crore rupees. That's around $28 billion US.
Under the Jan Dhan scheme, more than 500 million bank accounts have been opened for beneficiaries. With regard to processing infrastructure, basic connectivity has been ensured through availability of affordable mobile phones and internet. Even in rural areas, the mobile teledensity is around 60%. The trinity of Jan Dhan accounts, Aadhaar and mobile phones, popularly known as the JAM Trinity, has provided the base DPI infrastructure which is being leveraged for multiple value-added services.
The sheer magnitude of the program has laid the foundation for the success of India's digital public infrastructure that has found praise among world leaders.
Rural farmers in India who never had a relationship with the banking system are now able to transact all their businesses on their smartphone. They pay their bills, they receive payment for orders. 800 million people lifted out of poverty.
What has made the program successful has been that the accounts provide the framework for transferring financial benefits of government schemes directly to the beneficiary. Apart from that, there are life and health insurance schemes, pension schemes, and microcredit facilities that accrue to eligible account holders. To enhance digital access, there are more than 320 million RuPay debit cards provided to these accounts. 67% of them are in rural and semi-urban areas.
Modi has done an unbelievable job in India. He's taken 400 million people out of poverty. He has 400 million people without toilets. Really? And we're lecturing them how to do things? They put in this unbelievable, every citizen by hand or by eyeball or by finger is recognized. They open bank accounts for 700 million people. The transfer payments are going through. They've got an unbelievable education system, unbelievable infrastructure. They're lifting up that whole country.
Aiding the process of financial literacy are 115,900 bank mitras who deliver branchless banking services. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision of financial inclusion through the Jan Dhan, Aadhaar and mobile has been truly revolutionary. It provided a big bang moment for India's rapid economic transition and growth that 10 years on, we see in almost every aspect of Indian life. Bureau Report, DD India.
While Prime Minister Narendra Modi has expressed happiness over a momentous occasion of 10 years of Jan Dhan, sharing a picture, he congratulated all the beneficiaries and complimented all those who worked to make this scheme a success. He said Jan Dhan Yojana has been paramount in boosting financial inclusion and giving dignity to crores of people, especially women, youth and the marginalized communities. Also, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman too congratulated countrymen. In a social media post, the Finance Minister said, and I quote, "A progressive step was taken on this day 10 years ago for financial inclusion. PM Modi launched this initiative to ensure crores of our people who didn't benefit from formal coverage of financial services are brought in to benefit. Over 53 crore accounts with over 2.3 lakh crore in deposits is the result of this people's movement," unquote. And India's pharmaceutical company Bharat Biotech International Limited has launched a novel single-strain oral Corona vaccine or OCV in southern city of Hyderabad. The vaccine, named Hilcol, was funded by companies from US and UK, calling cholera outbreak a global issue. Executive Director of BBIL, Dr. Krishna Ella, pressed on the importance of this vaccine for both African and Asian countries to combat this extremely serious disease.
It's very important for the African continent and also Asian continent. The Asian continent ante the Andhra Pradesh, Orissa, West Bengal, Bangladesh, all these areas are highly contaminated with the cholera problem. For India, the East Coast has to be vaccinated. Everybody should be vaccinated as a preventive act. And we are now licensed. We have got the license, and we are ready to sell in the next 2 months. And then all the phase 1, phase 2, phase 1 and 2 we completed in Bangladesh. Phase 3 we completed in India. We have 3,600 children.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. Gallery 16, a new gallery showcasing Indian American artists of all genres, is opening close to the White House. And the 81st edition of the Venice Film Festival kicks off. Stay with us as we get a special report on what all is lined in this cinematic extravaganza.
This week on Defense Dynamics, we will tell you about defense and diplomacy panning out from Poland, Ukraine and right up to United States of America. What does this mean in real tangible terms? How does this underscore India's
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on, as Indian-American political power surges in the US with the prospect of either the first Indian-American president or second lady, its cultural power is expanding too. A new gallery showcasing Indian-American artists of all genres is opening just down the road from the White House. Gallery 1610 will feature everything from visual art and dance to henna classes. Our US correspondent Kate Fisher reports for more.
Grow this community where it relates to art, poetry, dance, and
the brainchild of Indian immigrant Rani Saudagar, Gallery 1610 is housed in the basement of her Washington, D.C. business, where she sells spices, serves Indian food and threads eyebrows. Now she's branching out into art in all its forms.
People love to do henna and they don't have any class over here, so I would like to put that together. And also like sip and paint, and then there is an instruction about painting classes. Very happy that this is going to bring a diversity of different culture.
That diversity reflected on opening night.
Because it's the first of its kind as well too, yeah? A gallery here in DC that showcases South Asian and art from the Orient. There isn't anything like it.
Summer Roshni Bulla is one of the featured artists. She'll also be managing events and classes at the gallery.
So art feeds my soul, and it's my quest to tell everybody that art has the power to heal and art has the power to make your soul grow. So
she says her work is influenced by her Indian heritage.
I feel like in terms of color and in terms of healing and emotion, I think my depth of feeling, a depth of emotion is something which informs me in the culture which I grew up in.
The work of ceramic artist Shalini Saxena also reflects some of her Indian background.
I accidentally found ceramic or ceramics found me, and then I never left it. I am always conscious that I'm not putting something dark, something which brings light, because light is so important to Indians that I kind of work on it. And each piece is reflecting that part of India for me.
Indian Americans are the fastest growing ethnic group in the US.
How are you? Thank you.
And immigrants like Rani are helping to increase their influence socially, culturally and economically, just as their political power is growing. Kate Fisher in Washington reporting for DD India.
And the Venice Film Festival kicks off today with a screening of Beetlejuice. The movie, directed by Tim Burton, is a long-awaited sequel to a cult classic from the 1980s. Our Italy correspondent Giles Gibson explains what else film fans should be looking out for at this year's festival.
The 2023 edition of the Venice Film Festival was missing some star power, with many actors forced to stay away due to strikes in Hollywood at the time. But this year, the strikes are over and the A-listers are back in force. Now, Beetlejuice features Michael Keaton and Winona Ryder, both returning to roles that they first played in the late 1980s. Now, this movie is not part of the competition for the Golden Lion, which is given every year to the festival's best film, but that opening slot in Venice is very prestigious indeed, and it's been the launchpad for Oscar-winning films in the past, including the musical La La Land. Now, for in-competition films, there's a lot of buzz about another sequel. This one that's not quite so long-awaited by fans. Joker Folie à Deux is the follow-up to the 2009 movie Joker, with director Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix both returning. Meanwhile, there's a first for acclaimed Spanish director Pedro Almodóvar with his first feature film in English, titled The Room Next Door. It stars Tilda Swinton and Julianne Moore and is an adaptation of a novel about a war correspondent who's dying of cancer. Critics are also closely watching a film called Maria, which is a biopic based on the life of the iconic opera singer Maria Callas. Angelina Jolie stars as Callas in this depiction of her final years living in Paris before she died of a heart attack in her early 50s. Those are just some of the big names featured in this year's festival, which wraps up on the 7th of September. Giles Gibson in Rome, reporting for DD India.
And the 1977 Kannada language film Ghat Shraddha, The Ritual, which won the National Film Award for the Best Picture Film, will be screened at the Venice Film Festival. Directed by Girish Karasavali, a restored version of the film will be showcased in the Venice Classics section. The Bengaluru-based filmmaker, who has won 14 National Film Awards, expressed his excitement about the film's inclusion in the festival and his curiosity about the audience's response. And Hollywood actress Sigourney Weaver arrived at the Venice Film Festival on Tuesday while will be honored with the Golden Lion for Lifetime Achievement Award. She arrived on the eve of the opening ceremonies of the 81st edition of the Cinema Showcase. With a career spanning 5 decades, Weaver is known for critical and commercial successes such as Alien, Avatar, Gorillaz, and The Mist and Ghostbusters. And in sports, now let all the updates from Paralympics. Well, the city of Paris is all set to host its first ever summer Paralympic Games in a grand opening ceremony tonight. Place de la Concorde and the Champs-Élysées will host 4,400 Paralympic athletes from 184 delegations as they celebrate the commencement of 11 days of competition starting from today. The ceremony will again take place outside the confines of a stadium, with athletes parading down the famous avenue, culminating in a celebration and official opening of the Paralympic Games at the iconic square in the front of thousands of spectators. And meanwhile, as India gears up for the Paris 2024 Paralympics, the anticipation is high, with the country's largest ever contingent set to compete. The Games will feature 84 Indian athletes, which is a significant increase from the 54 who participated in Tokyo 2020. Here are some of the key Indian medal hopefuls for Paris 2024.
Avni Lekra, parachuting. Avni Lekra made history at the Tokyo 2020 as the first Indian woman to win Paralympic gold. She excelled in the 10-meter air rifle SH1 event and also won bronze in the 50-meter rifle 3 positions SH1. Lekhra's continued dominance in shooting is highly anticipated as she returns to defend her titles in Paris. Sumit Antil, para-athletics. Sumit Antil, the gold medalist in the men's F64 javelin throw at the Tokyo Paralympics, is a two-time world champion and holds the world record in his category. Antil's exceptional form and previous successes make him a leading contender for gold in Paris Paralympic Games. Manish Narwal, parachuting. Manish Narwal clinched gold medal in the mixed 50-meter pistol SH1 event at the Tokyo Paralympics. His sharpshooting skills and previous accolades place him among the top competitors in Paris Games. Krishna Nagar, para-badminton. Krishna Nagar secured gold in men's singles SH6 at Tokyo 2020. His exceptional performance and previous successes make him a strong candidate for a medal in Paris Paralympic Games. Sheetal Devi, para-archery. At 17, Sheetal Devi is a rising star in para-archery. She won gold in the individual compound and mixed team compound events at the 2022 Asian Para Games, and her strong performances make her a strong contender for the Paris Paralympic Games also. Suyash Jadhav, para-swimming. Suyash Jadhav is prominent para-swimmer, won gold in the 50-meter butterfly at the Asian Para Games. He will compete in the multiple events, including the 50-meter freestyle and 100-meter backstroke, aiming to build on his past successes. Naran Singh's report, DD India.
All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lepakshi Kurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.